Good evening. As you know, Roger and myself have been going up to the hospital wall to train in these difficult times when we can't get out. I was quite struck yesterday with something that Roger said about the style of the climbing and how it's what we do. Um, Roger in particular has got very strong fingers. We've always been quite good at crimping. And I think it stems back to a total other era in climbing. One for me that's been a little bit forgotten about perhaps, but certainly for me, the best time in my life of climbing, and certainly the most memorable. Um, Also been a bit of chat about, and a lot of old photographs springing up from bygone days from the 70s and 80s. A time I have a great deal of affection for, a time of great adventure, of great discovery for myself, of growth as a climber, learning a lot of skills, not just climbing skills but mountain skills, a whole range of things you need to be aware of when you go out into these places, unlike the modern sport climbing environment, which I'm not decrying. I'm just reflecting on what it is we did, and I still like to do it. I still feel like I've got quite a lot to do there. Maybe not to such a level or the need for that sort of commitment, but getting back to it, the style of climbing, the fingery, tiny fingery edges, the tiny footholds, the need for very good footwork, for precision, for problem solving. Totally different ball game to sort of getting on and riding and pulling on a sport climbing. And not about power. Certainly got to be fit. You got to have, good fitness in your fingers, your legs, your all round. But totally different to the sport climbing thing in a way. It just took me back hanging on these little edges and having to use my feet so precisely as to quite a few climbs I've done over the years. Some really memorable ones. The favourites for me were always the wall climbs with just enough protection really, and sometimes maybe not enough protection, but I've always found wall climbing to be very, very absorbing, and there's some stunning climbs out there which I've worked through quite a few of them over the years. In particular, the Cromlech was where I really cut my teeth. Left wall, Resurrection, right wall. I felt really at home on these routes. Well, I enjoyed them. I didn't really find them that tough, although mentally taxing. I remember getting to the top of Lord of the Flies and having a full headache. The climbing just had enough, but went on a lot of climbing. Nothing out and out desperate, but a lot of places where you can't fall off, and a lot of commitment needed. And you really know you've done something when you get to the top of one of those. Perhaps an hour on the route of total concentration with your calves screaming. Will the gear hold? Won't the gear hold? 2 ropes, route finding. Totally different ball game to sort of stepping up and clipping a few bolts. It might not be big numbers, but the whole arena is different, having to carry a lot of equipment and put your life on the line to some extent. And there's a lot of things you need to be aware of, so it's a shame. I hope this type of climbing never goes totally out of vogue or disappears, but certainly my favourite sort of climbing over the years. I've been reading this amazing book again today. I don't know if any of you got it, The White Cliff. It's a collection of essays put together by Grant Farquhar, aka Dr. Death, who was quite a character around back in the day and did a lot of development and stuff like at Gogarth. Many days down there, and probably not that popular these days. I think people still go. I've been again recently and I was staggered by how difficult a day out it was in terms of energy and mental energy, physical energy. Just even getting to the bottom of the cliffs an adventure there. It takes commitment. You're not queuing up at the reception at the depot here. A lot of commitment, even just to get to the climb. So this is the difference between these things. So Um, what I was really thinking about was the times I spent down there and how I worked my way through the grades and how um, some of these routes really cried out for me to be climbed. I don't think it was ever an ego thing. I think for me they were iconic routes, and because I chose to do this game and chose to do these to be a climber, they just winked at me all the time. I had to go and do them. The earliest one I did was Positron. Of any note, the hardest one I did, which I'd done shortly after Right Wall. I had a bit of an epic on that one, and I'll probably tell you the tale of that on a different day. But I was more drawn into the wall climbing after that, and particularly the CAD. The CAD was flipping amazing. Wall climbing, very run out, and to be honest, I found it okay. Just like I say, after the hospital wall, and used to managing small crimps, and used to wall climbing, and I've heard people, a few people have fallen off this one. I certainly wouldn't like to have fallen off it. But I think once you get into that zone of, once you get absorbed by it, you just don't even think about how far above the gear you are. Everything goes out the window. It's you and the rock. And I've reached this stage a lot of times, and people talk about this, where you come outside of yourself. And very often I can't remember when I've been run out like this. I can't actually remember being there, because you're so focused in. It's just you and the climbing. You're not even looking at the drop, how far away the gear is. Really, when you get into that zone, there's no great reason to fall off. A couple of people have fallen off the CAD. A diminutive sport climber, very good sport climber, actually claimed he broke a hold off near the top, which I'm kind of not having, really, having been up there a few times. And I just don't think some of these people are in the zone. A good friend of mine, Tim Lowe, having done the groove at Malham the day before, 8A plus, massive 8A plus, managed to take the big ride off the CAD. All credit to him, really. I'd hate to fall off from up there. But I don't know, it just shows the glaring difference between the skill you need for these things and what it's all about. So good effort, Tim, for falling off that. I remember reaching the jugs after the run out on the CAD and looking down, and you can't even see the gear. The rope just snakes off down the wall around out of sight, and you can't even see the gear. So the thought of falling off there would be well, it doesn't bear thinking about, to be honest. So yeah, I've done a few of these things. I think the next one up on my list was Reef of Deadly Nightshade, an E7 down there. Maybe a soft touch E7 if there is such a thing. Although I didn't find it easy. I did it without any great incident. There are places on there where you can't fall off, and it is quite goey. I was glad to get to the top of it, to be honest, but I found it okay and just enjoyed it. So really it all led up to the big one that was winking at me, which was the iconic The Bells, John Redhead route, E7 6B, and massive reputation for having little or no gear, hard wall climbing, yeah, and I just knew I had to do it. As daft as it sounds, I had to go and do it. In the end, I was really fit at the time, sport climbing. I was going to Kilnsea a lot and could lap Frankie, the 7B plus there. I could do endless laps on these things, so my fitness wasn't in question. Probably you don't need to be that fit, but it helps to give you that confidence to have that sort of sport climbing fitness. And I went down there with my good friend Dave Barton. Probably the early 90s. I'm not very good with dates, but we went down there on a weekend, and I managed to do it. It wasn't the perfect ascent, but I think it was a bloody good ascent. Certainly the best I could do. A lot of people, quite a few people have done this route in various styles. Some I'm not too impressed with, one or two I am. A lot of jiggery pokery goes on these things, but some people have done it well. For me, particularly being with Mr. Barton, Dave, it's all cut and dry with Dave, ethically. And it's the way to do these routes. If you're going to abseil down them, check the moves, check the gear, top rope bits, to me, it just negates the whole sense of the thing, really, because the whole essence of these things is that you've got to have total commitment. You are going into a position where you could kill yourself. So this is what the reputation is all about. So for us, we arrived at the crag. I had a rough idea where it went. I'd never abseiled down it. There was no chalk on it. And off I set up the wall. I'm going to read you my little passage, if you don't mind, from the book. It kind of explains how the day went. Certainly never be back there again, but amazing to be in this zone at the time. So I will read you this passage. I wrote this at the time, actually, back in the day. I'm no writer, to be honest, but it was a one take. I've never edited it. I just sat down and wrote it when we got home. Only a small bit of it is out there, the actual climb itself, but it's all about the build up and why I ended up actually probably being there in the first place. So I want to read it for you now. It's called A Day Out with Mr. Barton, and it tells the tale of the build up and how I came to be down here at North Stack Wall. So it all started with a trip to Pembroke with a long-haired throwback. I spent most of the 80s and early 90s hiding away with the bright young things. My friend Mr. Barton said bolts should never have been allowed in Britain. You know, he may have had a point. Anyway, Bolton's answer to David Gilmour and I got on famously, and he, being an avid trad climber, awoke in me something far too long neglected. First, trips back to the quarries. I'd forgotten how amazing they are. Mad trips followed with Jeff Hibbert falling off High Tor, boozing, getting utterly battered by a roof crack at Carrick Hithram, while Geoffrey chanted from below, "Gwithbull, Gwithbull, Gwithbull." It was like a scene from a Welsh version of The Hollow Man and his revenge on the nasty sport climber. The tide was in at Llandudno, so somehow I found myself with my matching quick draws and an ancient collection of old wires at the top of the North Stack Wall. Being of an excitable nature, we got there way too early, so we had to sit at the top for a while the fog and the drizzle cleared. Gazing down, it's a really impressive wall, I say to my mate Andy. Well, not really, he replies, looking at the 3-foot whitewashed garden wall at the top next to the lighthouse. Well, not really. Looking at the 3-foot wall, we then decided to abseil in. Later that day, the CAD was a joy. I arrived at the top, thoroughly alive, back at the top between the two amazing walls. Contrary to my earlier opinion, I was really glad of the bolt. A warm Tuesday evening at Kilnsea was perhaps an unlikely preparation for a big, jolly, all-on-board bank holiday trip to North Wales. 8 times up Frankie, I couldn't hang on anymore, so I must be ready. Friday morning we're off, a great Lancashire departure, wives, dogs, girlfriends, windbreaks and the odd climber. A party atmosphere prevailed with a bottle of wine in the car for the journey down, loud music, sunny skies, the way it used to be. My mood was, however, a little tempered. There would be no nice, well-protected classics for me this weekend. The walk over the mountain to North Stack is an effort for me and Dave. The combination of staying in the pub too late and a collection of dodgy limbs result in a shambolic arrival at the two amazing walls. It's unusually busy, with people sunbathing, looking pensive, some even climbing. One of the latter, bringing up his mate, even speaks to us, inquiring as to our game plan. "Well, I'm doing Reef and he's doing Bells," is Dave's no-nonsense reply. Inwardly I laugh, reflecting on who's the more sceptical as the lads look us over. One of the latter, bringing up his mate, even speaks, inquiring as to our game plan. At the bottom of the wall we are soon eyeing up our chosen objectives. "It's okay," I lie to Dave, offering some unnecessary moral support. "There's a bit of gear before you move around left and onto the face, an absolute sinking runner above a little ledge. 20 minutes later, a shaky looking Dave is shouting that the bomber placement has gone. My stomach churns as the Wreath and Mr. Barton look about to part company. I can't believe what I'm hearing as he announces that he's going for it anyway. A technique known by the Cumbrians as pressing on and very rarely witnessed. Realising he's not far enough left and knowing there's no more gear to the top, I plead with him to reverse to the cluster of dodgy gear below. However, Dave, not one for retreat, is now deaf to everything and slapping his way up the arete. I was horrified at this point and watching. I curl up in a ball amidst the boulders and grip the ropes tightly to my chest, fearing the worst. Suddenly my world changes and I eject from the beach and find myself eye to eye with a grinning Mr. B. We were both suspended 20 foot up in the air from a solitary RP. Down, growled Dave. The comment came drifting down from above, had us laughing all weekend. Yeah, that guy reached terminal velocity. What a show. The afternoon had cooled down, but strangely there were still plenty of people around. My turn. Being with Mr. B, old-fashioned values prevailed. That means the only knowledge of the route we had was the guidebook, or a bit of hearsay. No church holes, pre-placed gear, or God forbid, a look from an abseil. All I knew was that the other routes here had felt okay if you went the right way, and I could hang on at Kilnsea for a considerable period of time. Good training, I suppose, for North Stack. Traversing out from the Cad, it all seemed steady. A fairly bomber sideways RP was soon a bit too far away as the wall got alarmingly smooth. I can't really help you now, is my mate's sound advice. After half an hour of shuffling, foot changes and self-doubt, I'm on the verge of coming down. But I know I'll be massively pissed off and probably back again in the next day or two. Without any real conscious decision, I employed the old trick of fooling myself and just going for it anyway. A few crimps and a desperate pull and I'm eyeing the peg. Clipping with a wobbling arm, I get the quick draw on, pull the rope up and simultaneously clip it and fall off. With full fear now, not sure of the old peg and my position in the scheme of things, I'm lowered at speech back to Dave and the beach. An hour later, on a beautiful summer's evening, with the crowds had dispersed, either through disappointment or they'd seen enough. What I thought was a formality was far from it, as I clawed my way up the wall above the peg to better holds. The rest was easy for a quarry climber like me. It's an amazing wall, for sure. So, hope you enjoyed that little account. Pretty harrowing actually, that route, and I don't think I underestimated it, but I definitely underestimated it second time up, thinking like I'd clip the peg, and the whole business of going above the peg where the run out is similar, a bit harder and longer than the CAD one, above one whole peg is pretty harrowing, and I wouldn't sort of recommend doing the route to anybody, or certainly wouldn't go back on it now. One of those one time only experiences, I think. After you get the jugs above, it's probably 50 foot to the top of what would probably be 2-3 climbing with a bit of gear, but there's absolutely no gear, so there's no falling off, and it's slow, steady progress, which I found okay, but you just don't want to pull a hole off at that point. It's not like you've got a spotter or, take me on the bolt. You might land between the boulders if you're lucky, or in a rock pool, possibly. So, yeah, I hope that's been enlightening. Good memories, and glad and proud I did it. Maybe not the most amazing ascent, but better than many, I think. So, yeah, cheers. Thank you.